Welcome to Small Talk with George. I'm not sure how old I was, but I'm going to guess around 7 years old. We lived in a big 10-room house with a full basement and a full attic in Massachusetts, just north of Boston. The house had a full screened-in porch across the front. The main entrance was halfway down the driveway. On the left-hand side of the driveway was a row of bushes standing at least 4 feet high. On the other side of the bushes was the fire station. When I was 4, my dad purchased a small piece of property on a lake in New Hampshire. We built a cottage there. Back then, it took about an hour and a half to drive there. We would spend almost every weekend at the cottage. We had a canoe, rowboat, a small sailboat. I always enjoy swimming and fishing. On the way up that hour and a half drive, anytime my dad saw a pop bottle or a can along the road, he would stop and make me or my sister run back and pick it up. After all, he could bring it to the grocery store and get the 2-cent deposit back. We had quite a trunk full by the time we arrived at the cottage. One summer night, when I was 5 or 6, we were planning to go to the cottage in the morning. My dad told us to go to bed and threatened that if we didn't, he and Mom would leave tonight for the cottage and leave us behind. Apparently, I did fall asleep, but after a short nap, I woke to an empty house. My parents had apparently left us behind. I woke my sister. I told her the news. We were afraid they had abandoned us. So we cut through the bushes to the fire department and explained to the firefighters that we had been abandoned by our parents. While one of the firefighters was trying to assure us that everything would be all right, one of the other firefighters went looking for my parents. He found them out in the front of our home trimming the bushes. Oh, were we embarrassed. My parents weren't too happy with us. Apparently, I was somewhat overweight as a child. My parents were very strict when it came to snacks and treats. Since my bedroom was on the 2nd floor of our house, I devised a plan to lower a thin rope from my bedroom window. I would then tie a bag full of snacks to the rope, run back to my room, and pull the rope up. This continued for several years before my parents discovered what I was doing. As I grew older, I made several poor choices. One day, my friend brought his bike into the garage wanting to paint it. My dad had several cans of used paint that we used, so we painted his bike. When we were done painting, we poured some of the gasoline that was used in the mowers into a small can and proceeded to clean the paintbrush. The gasoline did a good job of cleaning the brush. After cleaning the brush, my friend produced a cigarette lighter. He told me that he couldn't get it to light. Of course, I was able to get it working, only to drop the lighter into the can of gasoline. Not the brightest move. Being the resourceful person that I am, I ran outside, retrieved the garden hose, stood outside the garage, and played the water on the fire. That only spread the fire in the garage higher. Fortunately, a business associate of my parents was dropping some documents off at that very moment. When he saw the fire, he ran and somehow put it out. I don't know what would have happened had he not come by at that precise moment. I don't remember what my punishment was, but I am sure it wasn't pleasant. Another time, we invited an elderly friend of the family to spend the weekend at the cottage. I was excited to show off my boating skills and convinced her to let me take her out for a rowboat ride. One of the things I like to do is to go over to this pier, which is surrounded by water. It's built by, I guess, putting big pylons or whatever down into the ground under the water and then drilling holes in logs and pushing the logs down and making them interchange them on the sides to the other. But anyway, it stood on the bottom but was above the water line. And we used to climb up there and dive off. One of them had a diving board. So anyway, I rode to the pier and wanted to show off what I used to do, because a lot of times I would pull up beside this pier and I would reach down on a couple of the logs that were underwater. That's a place where snapping turtles like to sometimes, well, not underwater, but come out and sun themselves or just under the water. So while I was sitting in the front of the boat, or she was sitting in the front of the boat, I was in the back of the boat trying to get a turtle. Next thing I knew, this woman fell out of the boat. Fortunately, I did not panic. I was able to get her back into the boat and safely to the shore. She was not a happy camper. I don't think she ever told my parents, and I'm glad for that. These stories aren't overly spiritual in nature. My hope is that you might find me interesting enough to follow me as I continue to tell how God has used me over my lifetime. My theme verse is 1 Thessalonians 5:24. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. I'll talk about what that means, what it means to me soon. Now remember, the one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it.